tells you that these women weigh the exact same, even though their bodies look completely different, even though they wear completely different size clothes. And welcome to Health and Horsepower. Now, I'm really excited because I feel like a lot of people have been discouraged and really just kind of been down when they've been told previously about their BMI level. So what I want to do today is talk about the fact that BMI is a complete lie and completely inaccurate. It is not a good metric to find out if you are a healthy body type or not. So if you have been told previously that your BMI or your body mass index is too high, or if you've been told you're overweight and you're not really sure if you actually are because you work out frequently, or you have a demanding job where you're using muscles a lot, I really want you to know that BMI is not accurate. And I'm going to talk to you about why that may be inaccurate and very misleading as the only metric used to find if your body composition is considered healthy. So BMI was created back in 1830 by Adolphe Quetelet. Now, who is he? Well, he is a Belgian statistician, a sociologist, an astronomer, and a mathematician who created BMI, even though at the time he called it the Quetelet Index, to find out the average man. That's really the whole purpose. He wanted to find out what is the average man like. He created this index to basically put people against a scale or put people against a measurement. Now, why did he do this? Why did he create this index? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about what was going on back in the 1830s. So in the 1830s, we had a very high death rate going on. And the reason he did this study was because he wanted to see if there was a link between height and weight and death rates, because we had so many people that were dying. So he literally created this index to look at patterns of death in a large group of the population to see if there was correlation at all between height and weight and your death rates. So this was created to find the average man, and if you fell outside of the average, that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. It just means he can't predict whether you're going to die back in 1830. Now, we fast forward to 1972. Ansel Keys, who is a physiologist, stated that this measure is absolutely 100% essential so that we knew how to quantify health. Now, it's been 2 centuries since BMI was created by Adolphe Quetelet, and guess what? We are still using that, not only in doctors' offices, but insurance companies are still using that measurement to know whether you're at a high risk, and that's going to make them basically raise your insurance premiums, and to top it off, that's also going to put your doctor into quantifying you as obese or quantifying you as overweight, which is going to put you at risk for every single type of health problem out there. Because we're trying to compare you to the average man, not you specifically, and what we can improve about your body. So one of the things I want you to understand is BMI, body mass index, literally only looks at your height and your weight. It doesn't look at anything else. It doesn't look at your activity level. It doesn't look at genetics. It doesn't look at your sex. It doesn't look at any type of racial characteristics. It doesn't look at any of that. The only thing it looks at is height and weight. And are you in the average category for that height and weight, or are you considered overweight? Are you considered as a high BMI? So I want you to understand that BMI does not take into consideration your body fat percentage. So that means that if we look at your body fat percentage, so if we look at how much of your body is muscle and how much of it is fat, and we see in that ratio, are we in a good range, or are we higher body fat percentage and higher fat that we want to kind of reduce or get that body composition into a better range? It doesn't take that into consideration at all. Muscle is denser than fat. So that means that if we have the same volume of muscle and we have the same exact volume of fat, we're only going to take up 20% of the space with muscle than we are with fat. So that means that your muscle is going to be more dense. It's going to take up a lot less space. So if you have a higher muscle mass, you may actually, in fact, be thinner, but your weight may be higher because you have muscle that is more dense. So that means that a lot of times athletes, when they are getting measured on the scale, because they have a higher muscle content, because they've been working and building muscle and burning fat, they may have little to no body fat percentage, but because their muscle is heavier and they weigh more on the scale. They've been told for probably years that they are outside of normal BMI and they're at high risk of being overweight and having health conditions because of it. So you really have to understand that when it comes to body composition, you need to know how much of your body percentage is fat. Now, here's the thing. I want you to consider this because typically a healthy body fat percentage should be around 30% or less. And for females, if we get any below 10 to 15% of body fat percentage, we can start to see hormonal changes and also fertility changes. So typically for women, I do not recommend going below 18% for body fat percentage because that can really wreak havoc on your hormones. So typically when it comes to people that are in the gym, especially like bodybuilders and things like that, their goal is typically going to be 8 to 10% of body fat or less than that. For women, it is not healthy. Like I said, it affects hormones. Males doesn't affect as much. Women have a much different categorization and they have a much different change how their hormones affect their fat and affect their metabolism. Men are a little bit different. So for women, we have to be a little bit more careful, but I want you to understand that when you look at body composition and when you want to actually look, am I a healthy weight and height? Am I a healthy body fat percentage? Am I having a healthy muscle mass for where I'm at in my health and where I'm at with my health journey? You really have to look a little bit deeper. In my office, typically I do body composition measurements. So what I do is I actually will take your height, I will take your age, I will take your weight, I will actually do body measurements at your neck, at your chest, at your waist, at your hips, at your legs, at your arms, and then I'll actually calculate body fat percentages by doing skin fold measurements. So I will actually pinch your skin in multiple areas, take a measurement to see where our body fat lies to come up with a body fat calculation. And then based upon that percentage, we can actually figure out how much of your body mass and is actually lean mass or muscle and how much is actually fat. So how much fat do you actually have in your body to even lose or work on changing? And then from there, we can talk about some dietary changes. From there, we can talk about some exercise changes that you can do to help really focus on targeting fat to lose it and building back muscle. Because when you build muscle, you increase metabolism, which is going to help you lose weight not only faster, but also keep that sustainable for long term. Because if you're doing a diet where you're cutting calories and you're not necessarily focusing on building muscle mass and boosting metabolism, a lot of times what happens is you're going to lose weight quickly on a scale, but then your metabolism is lower because you've lost muscle mass in many cases. And then as soon as you stop eating that way, you gain everything back. It's almost like we kind of didn't do anything at all. It feels like we wasted our time. And I really want to make sure that people have sustainable weight loss. So I want you to know that BMI is a lie. It is not a good indicator. A better indicator would be actually to get measurements. And then as you're doing your dietary change and your exercise changes, you can actually re-measure and see how you're progressing. You can see not only how many inches you're losing, but you can also see where you're losing those inches. So you know if you are losing fat in a specific area or gaining muscle in a specific area. We can calculate to see how many pounds of fat you're losing, how much muscle you're actually gaining, and we can see your body fat percentage change. So we can actually set realistic goals. So instead of saying, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds, we can say, hey, let's lose 5% of our body fat and get into a healthier range, which means we're going to have to focus on losing fat and gaining muscle. And we can actually track that progress. I usually recommend about once a month getting those measurements done. So if you need help or you just need to figure out where you're at, where you need to go from here, give our office a call or even go to our website, freedompeoria.org. You can request an appointment. We do those body compositions right now during January, where you're doing your first body composition free of charge. So you can come in, get those measurements taken, figure out where you're at, where your starting point baseline is, and then we can help you set up some goals and some suggestions for how to change your diet and your exercise program so that you can meet your goals this year. So please stop believing that BMI tells you whether you're overweight or not. Really get down to the nitty gritty, get the calculations, figure out where you're at and where you need to go from here. If you need help with that, give me a call. That's what I'm here for. In the meantime, have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you next week on Wellness Wednesday. We go live at 5.